Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Life After Life with me, Sandie Byrne. Now in this episode I want to chat with you a little bit about signs from spirit. I know, we talk about it a lot, don't we? But at the time of releasing this podcast, we're just 2 weeks before Christmas. And we're all missing someone or thinking of someone or, lots of people that we've lost and that we wish were with us for the holidays. And I want to talk to you about this a little bit because, as I say regularly, our lives are so busy these days. Sometimes it's hard for spirit to make themselves known to us as our minds, we're so full of so much, in life and so much technology. Okay, so let's face it, there's always noise around us these days. And if there's not anything going on, we have ear pods or headphones on and we're blasting music or a podcast like this one into our ears, okay? And I have to admit that I'm very guilty of the ear pods on constant play. And I've been trying to wear them less when I'm, out running or cycling or whatever, because I find it gives me more headspace to be aware of the world around me. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But this is the point that I'm trying to make. Okay, if your head is so full of noise and information all of the time, then where's the room for spirit to give you signs or to make themselves known to you? Okay, it isn't there. There is no room. And that is the very reason that so many people get signs from spirit while they're asleep. Because that's the only time that you are relaxed enough for spirit to come into your energy to let you know that they're around. Okay? Now, identifying which dreams are spiritual visits, whether they're psychic dreams or just plain old memories. Okay, that's a whole different rabbit hole that we might go down in another episode of the podcast. Okay, so I won't be going into that one here. But spirit can and do visit us in dreams. And the reason is because when you're asleep, you're not thinking about stuff or organizing stuff or planning stuff or stressing about stuff or whatever you might be doing. Okay, when you're asleep, your mind is relaxed. And you're open to different energies coming in. Okay, so you can get that, they're able to, if you like, penetrate the bubble of energy around you because it's not so full, you're not so busy. Okay, and they can give you signs and messages when you're asleep. So how can you transfer this openness across to your waking hours? Okay, how can you make yourself open to receiving energy from spirit, or ask for and receive signs from your loved ones in spirit? Okay, and I'm not talking about just generic signs here like robins or butterflies, which are totally lovely and really nice to get. But sometimes we really want to get something more specific from our loved ones. Okay, now I spoke a couple of episodes ago about creating that energy or that space within your energy. Okay, so if you haven't listened to that one, you can go back. But in this one, I'm talking about, physical signs. Okay, how can spirit show you something, give you the smell of their perfume, hear their footsteps, play a particular song or all those kind of things. Okay, that's what I'm talking about here. So I have a couple of things that you need to bear in mind when it comes to this. Okay, so firstly, number one, know your loved one. Okay, and by this I mean think about who they are, because who they were when they were alive is who they will show themselves to you as now. Okay, and if you're someone who's had a mediumship with me previously or has been listening to me for a while, you will have heard me say this, already. That if your loved one was shy when they were alive, then don't go to a clairaudient medium. Okay, because a clairaudient medium hears spirit, and if your loved one didn't talk to strangers when they were alive, why would they start talking to strangers just because they've crossed over? Okay, because your medium is a stranger to them. So the answer to that question is that they won't. They won't start talking to strangers just because they've passed. Okay? Because, even if they did, you wouldn't recognise them. The first thing you'd say to me is that, my loved one wouldn't have spoken to you when they were alive because they were too shy to. So you couldn't possibly be talking to my loved one. Okay, so it's kind of a catch-22 situation for me. I'm a useless medium if I can't connect with them, and then if I connect with someone who is shy, then I'm told that they wouldn't have talked to me anyway. So, what's the point? So you need to take all of this into account when you're choosing a medium. And it's the same, guys, when you're going to see a medium that's on stage in front of an audience, a demonstration of mediumship. Because whenever I do a show like that, Okay, people always come up to me afterwards and tell me that they thought that their loved one would have come through because it's their birthday or their anniversary or whatever. So I asked them, if your loved one was alive and here in the auditorium today, would they have got up on stage and talked in front of an audience, this audience? Okay? Because if they wouldn't have done it while they were alive, why would they do it just because they've crossed over? They're still shy and reserved. Okay? And again, if they did, you'd just say to me that it couldn't be your loved one because there's no way that they would have got up on stage in front of all of these people. Okay, so sometimes people expect the impossible for the medium. Okay, you want your loved one to come through, but you know that they wouldn't have gone up on stage and talked in front of a crowd of people. So be realistic with what you expect. Okay, and I hope you see what I'm getting at. Okay, about knowing who your loved one was in life so that you can choose the best environment to come through to you from spirit. Okay, so if I have a relative in the spirit world that didn't like gardening, for example, okay, I'm not going to sit in the garden all day and wait for a sign from them. Okay, if they didn't like gardening, they're not going to sit around the garden waiting for me to talk to them. Okay, it's just not going to happen. If they didn't like the ocean, I'm not going to go to the beach and hope that they will send me divine inspiration there. Okay, like there's people that just hate going to the beach, and if your loved one was one of those people, why would you go to the beach to try and connect with them? Yeah, okay, you might be maybe particularly more relaxed yourself at the beach, but what are they going to show you? If they didn't spend time at the beach, what are they going to show you there? Okay, like I talk a lot about Kevin, and we all know Kevin died in a motorbike accident, and he loved motorbikes, and I would often smell two-stroke oil, just randomly. I don't have a motorbike. Well, my husband still has motorbikes, but they're not two strokes, and Kevin was a two-stroke man. So I used to have a two-stroke motorcycle myself when I was younger, but I don't anymore. But I could still smell two-stroke oil at the strangest of times. Okay, and it might be in the kitchen while I'm cooking dinner, it might be here in my office while I'm working, it could be in the car while I'm driving. Okay, I don't have to necessarily be any place in particular. I don't have to go to a racetrack or go to somewhere where they have two-stroke motorbikes. It just happens because that's my sign. Okay, now there's other signs from him as well, but the last week that he was alive, I'd spent the week with him and he was working on his bikes for the race that he actually ended up having his fatal crash in. Okay, so it's a really relevant sign for me. Okay, because it's one of my last memories of sitting in the garage with him, handing him tools. Okay, so your loved ones. You know what they liked. Okay, what was it? Did they play the piano? Did they feed the birds? Did they like fishing? Okay, if you put yourself in places or doing activities that they enjoyed, then you're more likely to connect with them. Okay, so what I'm saying here is, what would your loved one show you so that you would know that it's them and that it could only be them? Okay, there must be something, like the two-stroke oil for me. Like, what would be the thing that your loved one would show you? Did your granddad smoke a pipe? Would you expect to smell that really, really strong tobacco smell when he's around? And anyone who's ever smelled a pipe, then, it's very distinctive. It's different to a cigarette. Okay, like if you know someone who played the piano, would you expect to hear classical music? Okay, maybe you'd expect to hear Richard Clayderman playing in the background, or Frank McNamara. He's an Irish pianist that a lot of us would be familiar with from his work on the Late Late Show and stuff. So is this something that you would expect? Maybe randomly you turn on like TVAM in the morning and like Frank McNamara's on there or something. Okay, I don't know, but like what did your loved one like to do? Okay, maybe your loved one liked baking, and all of a sudden you get the smell of something nice in the kitchen, even though you don't have anything cooking at the time. Was your loved one into fitness or weightlifting? Would you expect to smell like deep heat, or maybe the smell of sweat, if they were around, if like fitness and working out was their thing? So what I'm asking you is to be aware of who you're looking for a sign from. Like if your loved one had a fear of birds, you're probably not going to expect to get a sign of a robin from them. Okay, robin's a very common sign. A lot of us have had it. But maybe Maybe your loved one had an irrational fear of birds when they were living. I shouldn't say it's irrational, because fears aren't irrational to those of us who have them. But, maybe they did have a fear of birds or butterflies, and they kind of creepy crawly. So therefore, that kind of rules out them giving you the robin or the butterfly sign. So you're looking for something else. Okay, be aware of who you're talking to, who you're asking for a sign from. Okay. Then number 2, create an environment where it's possible for them to send you the sign you've asked for. Okay, now that sounds complicated, doesn't it? But if we take into account what we've already discussed about the type of sign you might expect to receive from your loved one, then you need to create the space for them to give you that sign. Okay, so for example, if you're asking your mother in spirit to give you a sign, but your overriding memory of your mother is the lavender perfume that she wore every day, then you're going to expect to smell that perfume if she's around you. Okay? Therefore, you're not going to go around the house that morning spraying air freshener everywhere. Okay? You're not going to douse yourself in your own perfume. Okay? Because you're going to want to leave that area or that sense free for spirit to fill it for you. That's creating the environment. Okay, personally me, I always forget to use perfume because my own mother, was allergic to perfume. So growing up, I was never able to use perfume or hairspray or anything at home. So kind of never got into the habit of using them. I have tons of perfumes here that I keep forgetting to use. But I absolutely love scented waxes. Okay, I absolutely love them, and I consistently have them burning around the place. Okay. But if I'm asking my granddad for a sign, and my sign that he's around me has always been the tobacco smell from those little cigarettes he used to roll, those little cigarettes, the ones you make yourselves. I don't know what you call them. I don't smoke, but not the cigarettes that you buy ready-made in the shop. You can buy the tobacco and the little papers. That's what my granddad used to use. Okay. So if when I want him to come through to me and talk to me and stuff, I'm going to expect to smell that tobacco. So I need to create an environment where it would be possible for me to smell that. Okay, now, I spoke already about the two-stroke oil. Okay, anybody that knows motorbikes know that there's a very distinctive and strong smell with two-stroke oil. Okay, that will come over the smell of the wax, but maybe not the gentle smell of the tobacco. So, if I'm really asking him for a sign, I'll turn off my wax warmers and I'll leave the air clear so that I can easily recognise the smell. Okay? Now, I'm using the example of tobacco because my granddad was a smoker. But your sign could be something different. It might be baby powder, it might be perfume, Brill cream or whatever. Okay, and actually with my granddad, carbolic soap is another one that is, a distinctive smell for him with me. He was an army man. He always used the carbolic soap. So my point is that if you're looking for a particular smell, then try to keep your house free from strong artificial smells that will block you from recognizing or receiving that smell from the spirit world. Okay, now there's other things other than smell. Music for me is a big one as well, and could be for you too. And if I'm asking someone in spirit for a particular song, or for music in general, so that I know that they're around me, then I'm not going to have a quiet house with all the sound off. Okay, guys, it's very unusual for someone to appear in front of you and sing a song. Okay, spirit signs aren't that in your face. Okay, and I've talked about this before, that, for a spirit to appear and manifest a vision of them in front of you, they're gone in just a few seconds. Can you imagine how much energy that would take? Okay, so it's very subtle, but you need to create an environment where it's possible for them to manifest that song. So have the television or the radio playing in the background while you're going around the house. Okay, you have to create that energy that they can manipulate in order to give you a sign. Okay, so, you could have the radio on in the background, you could have the television on in the background, some kind of white noise that's just there. Okay, and this happened to me a few years ago. My mother was doing some work in her house and she was clearing out the attic and stuff. And she found some stuff that belonged to me. Okay, it had been there in the attic in boxes since I was in my late teens, okay? So she brought it out to my house. And in one of these boxes was a stereo, It was one of those in like 1980s, double cassette deck that you could record the songs from the radio before we had iTunes and stuff. and it had a radio on it as well. You know, it was very modern. That stereo had been given to me by Kevin, you know, for my 15th birthday, just a few weeks before he died. Like literally I turned 15 on the 30th of May and he died on the 15th of July. So he gave this to me just weeks before he died. Okay. And I said to my husband when my mother brought it out, I wonder if it still works. Okay. You know, it was very dated by this point. So anyway, I plugged it in and I plugged it into the electricity, and I turned the radio dial to see if it would pick up any radio station. You know, because I'm sure in all those years, a lot of, I don't know what you'd call it, but you know, the way the radios are kind of internet kind of based now, a lot of them, whereas in those days you kind of had an aerial and it picked it up, and being a 1980 stereo, that's the kind of aerial that it had. But immediately, I didn't even have to wait, I barely had turned the dial and it tuned into a radio station, and Freddie Mercury was singing. Okay. Now, Freddie Mercury was Kevin's favourite singer. He loved Queen, loved everything about him. So was it just a coincidence that the first time that this stereo was switched on in 20 years that Kevin's favourite artist was singing to me? You know, I'll let you decide that. I'm not going to tell you whether it was or it wasn't, because it's all very subjective. But my point here is that there had to be energy there for him to manipulate. And I believe that he wanted me to know that he was there with me, and that he knew that I was thinking about him when I got the stereo back after all those years. Okay, so my point is that you need energy around you, and you need to be aware of what you asked for when you asked them for a sign. Okay, so you know, if you asked for a song, music, whatever, you could be walking down the road and a car or an ice cream van might pass you, and you might catch the music of a tune, you know, that your mother used to always sing to you when you were a little girl. Okay, even if you're looking for a robin or a butterfly, like how will your loved one get that to you if you sit inside with all the doors and the windows closed? You know, do you see what I mean? And you know, I remember talking to somebody about this a long time ago. I did an in-person training, and somebody was saying to me that they actually did get a sign from an ice cream van, and where they lived, you know, the ice cream van never came around ever, and their loved one in spirit was actually called Roger. That's the name of the guy that was in spirit. And one day she walked outside the house with the dog, taking the dog out for a quick walk in the cold or whatever, and an ice cream van came, which it never did. And the ice cream van was playing the Roger Ramjet song. You know, I don't know, does anybody old enough other than me to remember Roger Ramjet, he's our man, hero of our nation. Do you know that song? For his adventures, just be tuned and stay tuned to this station. So it was a cartoon back in the 80s. So I might be older than a lot of you. Maybe you don't remember it, and I apologise for my singing. But yeah, so this was her sign that he was there. So for some reason that day, the ice cream van on a cold day turned in to the estate where she lived, never did, and Roger Ramjet was playing. Okay, so it's all about creating a space for them. If she'd been wearing earpods, she wouldn't have heard it. Okay, and you know, a couple of episodes ago I spoke again about making space within your energy for them. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay, for them to make themselves known to you within your energy. It takes a bit of practice to recognize the signs that way. You know, if they're giving you a pain in your kidneys because they had kidney issue, or they're giving a pain in their head, maybe they had blood pressure or cancer or whatever, several different things. You know, so it takes time to maybe recognize those particular signs. But when you're asking for physical signs from them, when you're actually asking for them to do something physical in order for you to know that they're there, then you need to create an environment where it's possible for them to manipulate energy so that you can get the signs that you're waiting for. Okay? Now be realistic in what you're asking for from your loved ones, because with all the love and intention in the world, the type of signs that you see happening in movies rarely happen in real life. Signs are very subtle and they're always personal. Okay? So I may have told this story before, but I'm going to tell it to you very quickly. Several years ago, I went to a show in Limerick, in the University Concert Hall. And it was a guy called Colin Fry, which a lot of you may have known or heard of. God rest his soul, he passed away a few years ago. And I went to see him. And with him, he had a lady that I'm hugely fond of. TJ Higgs is her name. She's an amazing medium. And so she came on as part of the show, and she was doing readings for the audience. And she had this young man with her, and she was talking about how he'd passed and some information about him, and that his mother was in the audience, and blah, 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 blah. Nobody put up their hand. Okay, now this is really disheartening when you're a medium on the stage and you're bringing through, information like this and nobody puts up their hand. Okay, because your energy hits the floor and then you find it hard to get the next connection. So please, guys, if you ever go to a show to see a medium, if you think it's you, please put up your hand. Okay. Anyway, nobody put up their hand. And she went on for another while. She gave more and more specific information. Nobody put up their hand. And the whole place was gone quiet, and people were starting to wonder, is this girl any good? Whatever. Now, TJ's an amazing medium. And she said, I'm going to move on. If nobody can take this young man, she said, I'm going to move on. And at that moment, the whole auditorium was really quiet. It was full to the rafters, and we could see it. Like the ceiling was like really high. It was one of those kind of utilitarian things where you could see the like wiring and the ducting up at the ceiling, and all of a sudden, whatever way in the light, what you call the light that's on a person when they're on stage, a spotlight, I suppose, we could see this single feather in kind of a circular motion floating down. It had come out of nowhere. Like it started about halfway between the ceiling and the floor, and it just started within the actual spotlight in a circular motion, started floating to the floor. And immediately TJ saw it and she pointed to it and she goes, there's a feather. That must mean something to somebody. She said, where's the feathers? Come on, where's the feathers? And with that, a hand went up in the audience. And the way when you're at a show like that, somebody runs over to the person with a microphone and she said, stand up, please, and tell us, where, why you think this is for you. And she stood up and she goes, well, I think it might be my brother. And TJ went, no. She said, he told me his mother is here in the audience. And she said, yes, my mother is sitting here beside me. And TJ said, please stand up. When the mother stood up, she was wearing a coat that had these feathers all around the collar or the hood, whatever it was. And it was the very same kind of feathers that, we'd seen coming down in the spotlight. So the son was getting frustrated that his mother wasn't putting up her hand. He literally pulled a feather from her coat and dropped it into the spotlight where the whole audience could see it. It was just an amazing moment. The minute the mother stood up and we all saw her coat, you could hear the united gasp from the whole audience. They went, all at once, 1,000 people. And it was just like, goosebumps. Everybody had goosebumps. And when TJ asked her why she hadn't put up her hand to talk to her son, she said, I was afraid it might not be him and I didn't want to take somebody else's reading. And she said, you nearly missed out on the opportunity to chat to him. And he came through with the most lovely personal message for his mum at the show that night. So my point in telling you that story is not how good a medium TJ is. TJ is a great medium. She's a fantastic medium. But it's just to show you that the sign was personal. The feather was exceptionally personal. I don't know anything about feathers, but this wasn't just like a feather from a bird. This was a specific kind of a feather. I don't know what kind of feathers they were on the coat. I'm sure they probably weren't real feathers. But the shape and the texture of the feather, like you could see it was from her coat. Okay. Now another little example. And if you follow me on social media, you've seen that I put this up a few days ago. Okay. So I was talking earlier about, creating the space and maybe not wearing the ear pods. Okay. And I told you that I've been doing that less and less recently. So a few days ago, I was contacted by somebody who was just touching base with me. I'd met her before and she's been part of my community for a while, on the Patreon, in the chat on there, and, attending the live sessions with me. Anyway, she just wanted to touch base because it was the anniversary. Well, it was the day before the anniversary of her loved one's passing. The first anniversary, I might say as well. So a very painful anniversary. And anyway, shared a couple of messages and that was fine. The following morning, I went out for a cycle. Okay. Now, this girl herself actually is very into cycling. Now, she would do maybe 60 or 80 kilometre cycle. I just do 20 kilometres. It's enough for my old backside. But so I went out and I did a 20 kilometre cycle. And during that cycle, I wasn't wearing any earpods or whatever. Now, my husband stopped me wearing them on the bike anyway because he says it's too dangerous. But like, I didn't have anything. It was just me out in nature. I live in the countryside, so there's in the middle of the day, there's very few cars around and it's quiet and it's just me in the road. Anyway, I was cycling and I was thinking about her because it was the first anniversary and, we've spoken about her loved one and whatnot. Anyway, all of a sudden I start to get this pain, this itchy, scratchy feeling on my arm and on my left arm. Okay. And I said, what does this mean? Thinking to myself, what does this mean? And all of a sudden then I got a picture of him in my head. And it was like he was saying to me, now I know I'll always be with her. And I recognised this feeling. So when I got back from my cycle, I texted her. And I said, I hope you don't mind me bothering you. I'm not trying to upset you on today of all days. I said, but by any chance, are you thinking of getting a tattoo in memory of this person on your left arm? And she came back almost immediately and said, I already got a tattoo in memory of him on my left arm. Why do you ask? And I just told her what happened. And I said, well, I've just been out for a cycle. And this was something the two of them used to do together. So the cycling, of course, was very relevant. But I told her what happened and the feeling. Now I have tattoos, so I know exactly what it feels like to get a tattoo. And I told her that it was on my left arm. And I told her that I felt like he was acknowledging this. When they acknowledge what's going on in your life because they want you to know that they're still with you, that they haven't just disappeared. But also the other feeling that I got from him, that it was his way of letting her know, that he knew she got the tattoo, but now he felt like he'd always be with her in everything that she did. Okay. So my point in that is it was a very personal message, okay, because I was cycling, which was something they used to do together. But also I have tattoos. Now another medium might not have understood that sign. They might, but they might not, because maybe they don't have tattoos and they wouldn't have recognized the feeling. Okay. Maybe they would. But what I'm saying is that spirit play on what we know. They play on what's going on around us and what energy they can manipulate in order to make themselves known to us. Okay? I hope this is making sense to you. Okay, like when I'm reading for somebody, I might, if I'm connected with someone's grandfather, I might see my own grandfather in my head. If I'm talking about someone's home house that they grew up in, I might see my own home house in my head. Okay, spirit manipulate my energy. They manipulate the ideas that are in my mind to get that personal message across to you. Because I don't know what the house that you grew up in looks like. I haven't a clue. But I know what the house I grew up in looks like. Okay, so you see, it's very personal. They manipulate the energy, but I have to put the energy there. And I did some training with TJ Higgs years ago. And I always remember her saying to me, now I don't watch television, but I do remember her saying to me that she was the kind of person that watched a lot of soaps. Okay, and she said that she remembered so much. It gave her a lot of reference points, for her mediumship. And I do remember talking about one soap where some character in it had, I think, a breast cancer or something, and, what they were describing and stuff like that. And from then on, whenever she was connecting with somebody that had a breast cancer, she would see this character from the soap opera in her head. So you see, spirit will manipulate the energy. They manipulate the knowledge, what's in your head as well. And that's how it comes through. Okay? So I hope this is making sense to you. And I hope that this information helps you to receive the signs from your loved ones that you've been looking for. And I will continue this theme in the new year. Okay, I will talk about the language and the signs a lot more, because, I hope, let me know if you're finding this helpful. I won't if you don't find it helpful. So please, guys, all I ask of you is that you give a thumbs up, a like, or whatever on whatever platform you're listening on. Okay. Let me know if this is the theme of information that you're looking for, because I'm quite happy to continue with this, and do this and share this with you, because mediumship isn't unique to me. Okay, this is just learning a new language. This is just learning a new way of communicating. This is something that you can do. Okay, I'm happy to help you with that if you want it. So just let me know. Just give me a thumbs up. I'd love if you just give me a thumbs up on this. Okay, people can't find my podcast if you don't acknowledge it. So that's the only thing that I ask from you. Okay, so guys, I'm going to leave it there for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please do give me a follow on social media. I put a lot of, stuff on TikTok, TikTok, because that's what it's called. I don't know one from the other. I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram, which are the ones I use mostly. I have a Facebook page, which I haven't been using as much because it's broken. It doesn't seem to get out there unless you're going to pay a fortune for advertising. But so if you're on my Facebook, give my posts a like, because if people are there, then I'll continue posting there. But anyway, for now, I'm going to stop droning on and I'm going to let you go and enjoy your life. So just be aware of the energy around you. Be aware that there's room for spirit to come in and give you the signs that you're asking them for. So for now, guys, I'm going to say goodbye. I will see you in the next episode of Life After Life. So until then, take care and stay safe. Bada bing.